What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. And I know some of you guys right now are wondering why the government is shut down. Why, once again, the government has shut down. And this time it really did shut down. It wasn't just a threat to shut the government down. What you need to understand is that the Republicans, who could very well open the government up by themselves because they have the numbers, if they all could agree on the budget for the federal government, they could open up the government. The Democrats, who are not in power in either the House or the Senate, right? They, because they don't have power, are sitting on the sidelines, and they're trying to be coerced into supporting the Republican budget for the federal government. Now, in that Republican budget for the federal government, they would like to take away some of Obama era's health care from you, the American. You know, after they done took away everything else. They done took away, your ability to buy groceries. They done took away a whole bunch of money from you to give to billionaires. Now they want to finish you off, and they want to take away certain aspects of your health care, right? So that you can pay higher co-pays and higher amounts for your doctor visits because they want to give more money to the rich people. So the Democrats are saying, you know what? How about this? All we want, even though we're not in power, that's what the Democrats say, we're not in power. But if you want us to help you, because the rest of the Republicans won't sign up on this, if you want us to help you, all you have to do is keep in place the Obama tax cuts and tax credits for healthcare so that people can go to the hospital and go to the doctors and pay what they've been paying, from Obamacare, right? That thing that everybody likes. Now, what the Republicans are doing, like they always do, right? They lie, and they're trying to say that the Democrats they want to give tax credits and money to Mexicans. For Republicans, the answer to everything is Mexicans, trans, black. Mexicans, trans, black, illegal. So anytime the Democrats say something, hey, such and such and such and such, the Republicans will say Mexicans, trans, black, and they believe that their constituents are so stupid and dumb and closed-minded that they will, Mexicans, trans, black, right? That's the only answer they need to hear to support the Republicans as the Republicans actively try to take away the last little bit of help that they have within this government after taking everything else from them so that they can give more money to the billionaires and millionaires who already have all the goddamn money, right? Remember, Republicans, Mexicans, trans, black. Now, by the way, Mexicans or illegal aliens, or how they like to call them, undocumented workers, who they are, they never, ever in the history of the United States of America has ever been given money from the government. You see, when undocumented workers, who they like to call criminal, illegal aliens, when they come here and they go to get health care, they have to actually pay out of pocket. They've never been allowed to sign up for any programs because they can't, because they're not legal. They always have to go to clinics and pay out of pocket. So the Democrats are hoping that you're so stupid that you don't know that, right? They're hoping that you're so inept that you don't know that. And they believe that you don't know that. And lo and behold, a lot of people don't. Because all I got to do is say illegal Mexican trans black. They can just make that one word. That's the answer to everything. Illegal Mexican trans black, right? So the government is shut down and things are not getting done because the Republicans really, 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 really want to take more money away from you and take more away from your health care, even though those same Republicans, they get free health care, free dental for the rest of their lives. But you peasant, you don't fucking deserve that shit. So they're going to take it. But their only argument is to say Mexican trans black because they don't have any legitimate argument to why the government is shut down. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to put more information for people who are way smarter than me, who can explain it better than you in a less colorful way. All right. But still, nonetheless, you'll get the information so you can understand why the government is shut down. Remember, the Democrats are trying to save the last little bit of health care that you do have. No, last little bit of relief that you do have when getting your health care. And the Republicans, like they always do, illegal Mexican trans black. All right. Anyway, tell me what you got to think in the comment sections. Afro Think Tank, learn something, teach something. I'm out.
First government shutdown in nearly 7 years. Yes, this is happening. It officially began at midnight because lawmakers and President Trump failed to reach a deal. Both sides are now in a bitter fight over spending priorities and blaming the other. According to one estimate, up to 750,000 workers could be furloughed every day, costing them $400 million in pay every day.
Usually these shutdowns get headed off because one side blinks or there's a last-minute agreement, but this time neither of those things happened. And so as of this morning, the federal government is technically out of cash. How long will it last? No one knows.
After Congress failed to reach a deal last night, tens of thousands of federal workers will be told to stay home today, furloughed without pay. Workers deemed essential, like air traffic controllers and members of the military, will stay on the job, though they won't get paid for now either.
Most TSA officers live paycheck to paycheck.
Aaron Barker works for TSA in Atlanta.
If it gets to that point where officers can't afford to come in or have to make a decision whether to purchase medication, pay daycare, or put gas in the car to come to work, they're going to have to make that hard decision, and no one really wants to do that.
But they may have to, because late last night, a funding bill did not pass the Senate. It needed 8 Democrats. It got 3.
You know, the only real victim here is the American people. This is so unnecessary and uncalled for.
Democrats were holding out for an extension of Obamacare premium subsidies and changes to Medicaid.
Our guarantee is to the American people that we're going to fight as hard as we can for their health care.
President Trump is warning his administration might use the funding lapse to push through more mass layoffs. I asked him about that yesterday.
How many federal workers do you plan to lay off?
Well, we may do a lot, and that's only because of the Democrats.
Later in the Oval Office, he upped the ante, claiming that all the workers who lose their jobs will somehow come from one party.
We'd be laying off a lot of people that are going to be very affected, and the Democrats, they're going to be Democrats. A lot of good can come down from shutdowns. We can get rid of a lot of things that we didn't want, and they'd be Democrat things.
The uncertainty has left workers like Barker to wonder if their jobs could be on the chopping block.
It's one thing to say, hey, you may not get paid, but then to say you may not get paid forever, we're going to remove you from your job, is a whole nother thing. It's just the worst case scenario.
President Trump continues to taunt Democratic leaders about all this on social media, posting another AI-generated video of House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, which is similar to an earlier one that Jeffries called bigoted. He also posted these photos of their Oval Office meeting on Monday with Trump 2028 hats prominently displayed on his desk. A nod, Tony, to a potential third term that the law does not allow.
I have no idea what's going on with the shutdown. These are the only 2 things you need to know. The Democrats refused to sign a budget bill that will cause us to lose a ton of health care. They're not asking for more. They're just saying to the Republicans, hey, can we keep what we have? And if we lose it, a lot of people are going to pay double for their health care. And the Republicans refused to negotiate, so government got shut down. The second thing is that you're going to hear this lie that the Democrats want to give health care to the illegals. And I hate to tell you, but undocumented people can't get health care. You're literally just being lied to. That's all you need to know. Tell a friend.
The federal government just shut down. It's happened before, in fact, several times over the past 50 years. Sometimes for as little as a day, sometimes it's dragged on for weeks. Congress appropriates money for the federal government, typically through a fiscal year, which runs to the end of September. And if it doesn't appropriate more money, then the government has to shut down. And the most recent shutdown in 2018 into 2019 was the longest on record, lasting more than a month. That was only a partial shutdown. Some agencies remained open, but even so, it was tremendously disruptive. We saw lines at food banks as federal workers who were working without paychecks waited in order to get food assistance. In terms of the economic impact, I think we can kind of think of this in 3 buckets. The first, and in some ways the most significant, is hundreds of thousands of federal workers will be furloughed, and those who continue working will have to do so without pay, at least for the duration of the shutdown. For the macroeconomy, for total unemployment, for total spending, the impacts, at least in past episodes, have been relatively minor. Federal workers workers eventually do get back pay for the period that they miss. But there's a third category as well, which is that one of the things that is shutting down is our economic data collection. We're not going to get data on the labor market, on inflation, on spending. And that has a real impact, particularly for officials at the Federal Reserve who are trying to sort through what is happening with the economy right now, trying to weigh the conflicting forces of unemployment and inflation. And if they don't have the data that they need to make good decisions, the risks are greater that they make an error and that we end up with higher unemployment or faster inflation than we otherwise would. We have no idea how long this shutdown is going to last, but the last few shutdowns have been a bit longer than average, and the longer it goes on, the more significant the impacts will be, both for the workers and for the economy as a whole.
So JD Vance just went on Fox News and lied his face off. Listen to this, and I'm going to be back to explain.
Yeah, so this is a Democrat talking point. They say we're not actually trying to give health care benefits to illegal aliens, and here's why it's not true. There are two Biden-era programs that explicitly gave the taxpayer health care money to illegal aliens that we turned off when President Trump took over in January. Program number one is there's a lot of emergency health care at hospitals that are provided to illegal aliens. That was funded by the federal government. We turned off that funding because, of course, we want American citizens to benefit from those hospital services, not to be taxed, and then to have those hospital services go to illegal aliens.
So in 1986, President Reagan signed a federal law called EMTALA. EMTALA. It mandated hospitals take care of any person that comes into their emergency rooms. It didn't say legal or illegal, just person. So if someone was in a giant car accident and they're bleeding out, no one's asking them for their passport. EMTALA required emergency rooms and hospitals provided treatment regardless of the patient's ability to pay or their immigration status. Meaning if you're a visitor to this country or a tourist and you have an accident or a medical emergency, you are also eligible to receive care. What JD is talking about turning off is the payment the federal government made to emergency rooms and hospitals for the treatment of these people as mandated by the law. So, thanks to JD and Donald's administration, hospitals are now forced to eat the costs of that federal requirement, which means they are forced to pass those costs along to us, the consumer, the people with insurance, the citizens of this country, for what the government is no longer paying them back for. So they didn't save us any money. They just made a terrible system even worse. But this has nothing to do with what the Democrats are fighting for, and JD knows it. We don't just let people die in ERs in America. But the Democrats aren't fighting about that. They are fighting to preserve the health care of citizens who are going to lose their coverage due to skyrocketing costs that were engineered by the Republican Party. The Republicans cut Medicaid, which affects Medicare, and people with private insurance. They are closing rural hospitals, which only makes urban hospitals more crowded and understaffed. They took federal funding that paid for EMTALA, and now they are refusing to extend the federal tax incentives to offset the ACA costs, so people will no longer be able to afford their insurance. They are putting tariffs on pharmaceutical drugs, all of which will kill people. And the Democrats are like, hey man, we should be a cooler country than that. Maybe our people shouldn't be dying of treatable illnesses or bleeding out in the streets while we brag that we're the hottest and best country in the world. And the Republicans are like, nah, fuck that. Americans can die for all we care. But let us be sure to send billions of dollars to Argentina and Israel. Both countries that have universal health care, by the way. So stop believing these lies.
Right now, if you go on the USDA.gov website, it reads this message. Due to the radical left Democrat, what is that? Radical left Democrat shutdown. This government website will not be updated during the funding lapse. President Trump has made it clear he wants to keep the government open and support those who feed, fuel, and clothe the American people. Here's my issue. I feel like there's only a subset of American people that are informed enough to look at this kind of message, think critically about it, and realize, holy shit, the framing is off and the wording is incendiary. Here's the thing. The reason why the government shutdown happened is because, and I'm summarizing this post from Elizabeth Booker Houston, the Democrats don't want to support another health healthcare funding slash. We already had a huge one with the big beautiful bill earlier this year, July 4th, and now this one. So the framing of this message that's on an actual government website, the whole world, everyone can see this, is that it's purposefully casting the Democrats in a bad light in order, I'm sure, to fuel the culture wars, fan the flames of this hyper-partisanship that feeds into these culture wars, and to cause people to think, oh, the Democrats, as opposed to, oh, the 1%. Like, they are trying so hard to push a culture war when the serious thing right now is actually a class issue. Go look at any of these online political commentators. Walter Masterson is a great one. Yesterday he put out a video talking about how the goal is to start a culture war. Fortunately, on my feed, on my algorithm, it's looking like some Americans are becoming informed enough to know that it's more of an issue of up versus down rather than left versus right. However, that's my algorithm. Nothing showed me how big of an echo chamber I was in until the 2024 election. Holy shit. So I don't know what it looks like outside my algorithm. Everyone's feeds are so customized that we're all hyper siloed, so my perception may not be yours. However, everyone's perception is the same with this note. And it is insane that a president of the United States, who is supposed to be the president of all the people, both parties, is participating in fanning the flames of this culture war that they're trying to start. Obviously, this is par for the course with someone who fanned the flames of January 6th, so this is to be expected. However, it doesn't change the fact that this is terrifying and that we all need to remain hyper conscious going into 2026 and honestly the next 3 years. That the issue is not left versus right. The actual issue is up versus down. By the way, Ari Aster's film Eddington tried to highlight the issue of this hyper-partisanship culture shit, but the movie was incorrectly received by the left and by the right. Everyone take a look at Ari Aster's Eddington. It came out this past June or July, and I personally believe that it is required viewing for all Americans. And don't watch it from a liberal lens or from a Republican lens. Watch it from the neutral lens of a citizen who is basically living through the events of everything happening in that movie. It's a one-to-one comparison of the culture wars going on now. Watch the movie and look at who wins in the end. And I'm not talking about Joaquin Phoenix's character. I'm talking about the data center. Anyway, little tangent. I don't have to tell you that this message isn't normal, but if you know anyone who is uninformed or prefers to be uninformed for peace of mind, who could be swayed by messages like this, be sure to remind them the fight is not left versus right, it is up versus down. And this kind of message is not a sign of a healthy democracy.
Thanks very much for joining me. As most of you know, the government has been shut down. Why? How do we reopen it? So let me say a few words on that. On the long-established Senate rules, it takes 60 votes to pass a continuing resolution to fund the government. The Republicans have 53 members in their caucus. Democrats have 47. Bottom line, as has been the case for decades, the two parties must negotiate to reach an agreement. But in an unprecedented manner, Republicans have refused to do that. They have refused to sit down and work out a bipartisan solution. In their view, it is their way or the highway, take it or leave it. And that's why the government has shut down. But this shutdown is far more important than just Senate process. At a time when the American healthcare system is deeply broken, we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee healthcare to all people. We pay the highest costs. Trump's big, beautiful bill will make that situation in healthcare even worse. As a result of that legislation, 15 million Americans will be thrown off of Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. Studies from Yale University and the University of Pennsylvania suggest that when you throw 15 million low-income and working-class people off of the health care they have, some 50,000 Americans will die unnecessarily every single year. Let me repeat that. I know it sounds amazing, but it is true, and it's understandable. If you're throwing 15 million low-income and working-class people, many of them with serious health problems, off their health care, they can't get to a doctor when they need to. It is not shocking to understand, or surprising to understand, that 50,000 of them will die unnecessarily every single year. That's what we're looking at. And then, on top of all that, the Republican bill also cuts tax credits for the Affordable Care Act. A study just came out yesterday from the Kaiser Family Foundation, a nonprofit healthcare organization, and its findings are pretty clear. Within the next several months, healthcare premiums for 20 million Americans on the Affordable Care Act will double. Got that? Double. So you think that right now you're paying an outrageous amount for health care, and you are. And right now you can't afford health care, and many of you can't. Under the Republican proposal, your premiums will, on average, double. This is insane. It is unacceptable. In other words, instead of lowering health care costs, instead of adding more people to health care, cutting back on the number of people who are uninsured or underinsured, what Trump's legislation does is make a terrible situation much worse. So don't get confused. I know there's a lot of stuff in the media, and a lot of people in both political parties are arguing with each other and blaming each other. But to me, what is going on is really not complicated. And that is, if we do what the Republicans want us to do and pass a clean CR with no input at all from the opposition, if we just do that, 15 million Americans will lose their health insurance and tens of thousands will die unnecessarily every single year. If we pass the Republican legislation, your premiums will likely double in the very, very near future. Needless to say, I do not intend to support the Republican proposal. Thanks very much.
Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! We most definitely cannot forget about the people of Sudan!
Thanks for watching Afro Think Tank. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And follow me on Substack and Patreon for more content. Remember, it's Pan-Africanism or nothing.